so that we become human beings, not violent, destructive animals. So, the analyzer is the analyzed. And the separation between the analyzer and the analyzed is the whole process of conflict. And when you analyze, as we said, it involves time, because there are so many fragments. The fragment of despair, the fragment of ambition, fulfillment, frustration, dependency, anxiety, guilt, pleasure, fear, hope. You have to examine every fragment. And that will take you all the rest of your life. And by the time you have analyzed all of this, you are ready for the grave. And you haven't lived at all. Now don't laugh. Please, this is not an entertainment. This is dreadfully serious. It's only the earnest, serious person that knows what life is, what living is, not the man who seeks entertainment, amusement. And therefore this demands a great deal of earnest inquiry. And we are doing it together. You're not learning from me. The speaker has no value at all. It's like a telephone. So, the mind must be completely free of the idea of analysis, because it has no meaning. Not because the speaker says so, but you see the truth of the whole business of an analysis. And the truth will bring understanding. Truth is understanding of the falseness of analysis. Therefore, when you see that which is false, you can put it aside completely. It's only when we don't see, then we are confused. Now we can look into the psychological fears. Not the many multitudinous fears, but fear. And there is only one fear, though one may have different causes of fear, but there is only fear. Whether it comes about through various reactions, through various objects, through various influences and all the rest of it, there is only fear. And fear does not exist by itself. It exists in relation to something, which again is fairly simple and obvious. And what takes place? One is afraid of something, afraid of the future, afraid of the past, afraid of not being able to fulfill, afraid of frustration, afraid of not being loved, afraid of living a lonely, miserable life, afraid of old age and death. So there is fear, both recognizable and the hidden. Now what we are inquiring is not into any particular form of fear, but the totality of it. Both the conscious as well as the hidden. Right, are we going together? Are we? I hope so. What is fear? How does it happen? And also, in asking that question, you have got also to ask the question, what is pleasure? Because fear and pleasure go together. You cannot discard or be free of fear without understanding pleasure. They are both the sides of one coin. So in understanding the truth of fear, you're also understanding the truth of pleasure. If you say, I only want pleasure, no fear, that's an impossible state. But whereas if you understood both of them, then we shall have quite a different appreciation, quite a different understanding of both of them. Which means that we have to learn the structure and the nature of fear as well as the structure and the nature of pleasure. You can't be free of one and hold on to the other. So what is fear and what is pleasure? Strangely, if you observe yourself, you want to get rid of fear. The whole modern and the ancient doesn't matter. All life is an escape from fear. Your gods, your churches, your morality, which is no morality at all, is based on fear. And to understand it, you have to understand how this fear comes about. You have done something in the past and you don't want another to find out. That's one form of fear. You're afraid of the future, either because you have no job or you are threatened and so on, future. So you're afraid of the past, you're afraid of the future. Fear comes when thought looks back to the events or to things that have happened in the past, or to things and events that may happen in the future. Thought is responsible. right? If you did not think about death, and you have very carefully avoided, especially in America, not to think about death. But it's always there. And you don't want to think about it. Because the moment you think about it, you are afraid. And because you are afraid, you have theories about it. You believe in resurrection, reincarnation, dozens of beliefs. All because you are afraid, which is thought. Thought creates, sustains fear of yesterday and of tomorrow, and thought also sustains pleasure. You have seen a beautiful sunset. At that moment there was great joy. The beauty of the light on the water, the light on the mountains, the light on the trees and the movement of the trees. It's great delight, great enjoyment. Then thought comes along and says, how I wish I could have it again. I want it again. You begin to think about it. And you go to that place again tomorrow and you don't see it. So thought, please, this is not a formula for you to learn, but to understand together. Therefore, there is no agreement or disagreement. Thought breeds fear, and thought sustains and nourishes pleasure. You have had sexual pleasure, and you think about it. You chew on it. You build images, pictures, and thought sustains it. There is thought sustaining pleasure and thought sustaining fear. So thought is responsible. Right? So what is thought? Thought is obviously the response of memory. If you had no memory, there would be no thought. If you had no memory of your house and the road to your house, you wouldn't get there. So thought not only breeds, sustains fear and pleasure, but thought also is necessary to function, to act efficiently. Because thought is the response of past accumulated memories, experience, knowledge. See how difficult it becomes, where thought must be employed completely, most efficiently, objectively, when you function technologically, when you do anything. And also, thought breeds fear and pleasure, and therefore pain. So, one asks oneself the question, what place has thought? Where is the thin line between when thought must be employed completely and when thought mustn't interfere when you see the most beautiful sunset and live it at that moment and forget it at that moment. Are we following each other? Because thought, the whole process of thinking is never free. Thought is never free because it has its roots in the past. Thought is never new. There is no question of freedom in choice. Because thought is in operation when you choose. So we have a very subtle problem. Which is, one sees that the danger of fear, which is brought about by thought, and fear destroys, perverts, makes the mind live in darkness, misery. And yet thought must be used most efficiently, objectively, without emotion. So what is the state of the mind that sees this? I hope I'm making myself clear. What is the state of the mind, your mind, now, as you observe this fact? The fact that thought must be employed, thought must function naturally, and thought also breeds fear. And with it, the fear of losing pleasure. When the mind sees this, what is that state that sees it? Are we meeting each other? Are we? Say yes or no, I don't know. You can't hear? I've talked nearly an hour. Are you saying you can't hear the end of it? Good Lord. Look, sir, it's very important to understand this very clearly. Because it's no good you're sitting there a whole hour listening to a lot of words that have no meaning. When at the end of it, when you leave, that you're still afraid. When you leave, there must be no fear. Not hypnotize yourself that there is no fear, but actually, psychologically, inwardly understand the whole structure of fear. And when you understand something, when you have studied something, when you have learned something, there's no fear. That's why it's very important to learn, to look. And what we are doing is to look, to observe very closely how fear comes into being. So we said thought, which is fairly simple and fairly clear when once you see it. When you think about something, when you think about death, when you think about losing your job, when you think about dozen things, either of the past or the future, there is the inevitability of fear. Now when the mind sees this fact, that thought must function and also see the danger of thought. Now, what is the state of the mind, the quality of the mind? Rather, let me use the word the quality, not the state. The quality of the mind that sees this. You have to find out, not wait for me to tell you. Look, please listen carefully. It's so simple, really. We said analysis is no good. And we went into it, explained it. You've understood it. If you saw the truth of it, you have understood it. Before you have accepted analysis as part of your conditioning. Now when you see that the futility, the absurdity, the falseness of analysis, it has dropped away. Now, what is the state of the mind that has pushed or put aside an analysis? It's freer, isn't it? Therefore it's more alive, more active, and therefore much more intelligent, sharper, sensitive. And when you have seen the fact how fear comes into being, I've learned about it, watched it, and the process of pleasure, and watched it. Watch your own state of mind, which has become now much more acute, much more alive, much more sharp, much clearer, therefore tremendously intelligent. This intelligence has nothing whatsoever to do with knowledge. With experience. You can't arrive at this intelligence or let this intelligence happen by going to a college and learning how to be sensitive. This intelligence comes when you have observed very closely the whole structure of analysis, what's implied in it, the analyzer, the analyzed, time, this stupidity of thinking by one fragment is going to clear up the whole process. And seeing the nature of fear and understanding what pleasure is. Seeing all that makes the mind extraordinarily sharp and clear, doesn't it? Therefore free. Therefore when you tomorrow or when you leave, fear comes upon you, which has become a habit, you will know how to meet it. And not postpone it, you will meet it. And the very meeting of it is the ending of it, at that moment, because your intelligence is in operation. That means not only the fear, the known psychological known fears, but also the deep hidden fears. You know, I don't know if it is time for me to go on, is it? You know, one of the most strange things is how easily we are influenced. From childhood, you are brought up to be a Catholic, Protestant, American, or whatever it is. You're influenced. You're the result of propaganda. Keep on repeating, and you keep on repeating it. We are second-hand human beings. And it's very easy to be influenced. Therefore, be on your guard not to be influenced by the speaker. Because it's your life, not his life. And to go into the question of pleasure, because that also has to be understood. What pleasure is, what joy is, what real enjoyment is, which has nothing whatsoever to do with pleasure. And I don't know if we have time to go into that this evening. Because pleasure, for most of us, implies love. Has pleasure anything to do with love? Has pleasure, desire, has it any relationship with love? And I'm afraid it's too late to go into that this evening. Perhaps we'll do it on Saturday morning. But to understand all this, one has to observe oneself. You know, you are the result of the world. You're a human being who is part of the other human beings, whether they live in India or in China, in Russia, or in America. We have all the same problems. Perhaps not economic, social, but human problems. We're all in great sorrow. Unhappy human beings, fighting, making tremendous efforts, and saying to ourselves, life has no meaning whatsoever as we live it. So we invent formulas for living. All that becomes so utterly unnecessary and stupid when you understand yourself, the structure of yourself, fear, pleasure, love, and the meaning of death. Then only you can live as a total human being and never do anything wrong. So, if you will ask, if you want to ask questions, bearing in mind that the question and the answer is within yourself. Yes, sir.